Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Andy, is Anthony Davis just blowing off the offseason? Does he even care about his disappointing 21-22 season? That's next on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, no matter how you get your podcasts or where you get them. It's never behind a paywall. It's always free, always fresh Lakers content for you. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to get the audio a little early with video. We usually get the YouTube version up a couple hours before the audio only version goes up. So subscribe there, get all the breaking news. That's where that stuff goes as well. Want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Andy, we're gonna get in a second here to the viral video from Anthony Davis that has Lakers Twitter, dare I say, a firestorm this week.
Yes,
erupted.
Yeah, I mean, think how upset they would be if they actually saw more than the 8 seconds clipped, arguably out of context. But like,
yeah, no, there's context. There's all kinds of stuff, and it actually is reflective of certain realities that are going on among Lakers Nation. In betwixt the members of Lakers Nation in around Anthony Davis. So we'll get to that for sure. Want to talk Steph Curry in the finals because the way Steph is performing actually had me thinking a lot about AD specifically this weekend. And so I want to get to that. But first, Andy, we got to go back to Friday's show and the controversial segment we did where you proposed a Russ Westbrook. We're close. I call him Russ. Russell Westbrook and presumably some stuff for Rudy Gobert, Utah's Rudy Gobert, who's reportedly on the trading block. And
huge defensive upgrade. He would be an absolute defensive upgrade. He would
massive.
Be an absolute rebounding upgrade. He is a very good player. He is, however, very polarizing both among basketball people and especially among fans. He would be, I think, at best, a complicated fit for what we know Darvin Ham wants to do offensively.
Right.
And he seems to rub teammates the wrong way. He's also owed $169 through 2026.
$169 million. $169 would actually be quite a bargain.
No, that's a hell of a bargain.
And I would make that trade.
No,
heartbeat. It's really one of the best contracts in the NBA at that point. 106. I'm going to make more money. This week I'm going to make more money than
from
that.
this show.
From this show,
that's something the players' union needs to look into.
But it does reflect how much everybody hates Rudy Gobert. That nobody seems to be complaining about the state of his contract. But what I think is great about it is you put up a poll on at Cam Brothers, which is our main Twitter feed. You can also, of course, follow the show at Locked On Lakers. Asking people, would they do that? And when you say that it is a polarizing and controversial trade idea, because again, we're talking about a huge and tangible upgrade in the form of Rudy Gobert. Unquestionably better. 51.4 to 48.6.
Yes.
I mean, that is tight. So right now the nose actually won. The polling is closed, but that is essentially 50-50.
Yes. No, don't do it, Rob. Just slightly edged out. Yes, do it, Rob, among Laker fans. And if you go, actually, this is reflective of what we saw on the Locked On Lakers YouTube page comments. There was some people pulling forward and a lot of people actively disliking it. And to the point that I mentioned in bringing this up in the first place, because I acknowledged from the beginning, this is not something Utah would do at all.
Oh
Even if
God,
they were,
no.
even if they were looking just to completely blow things up and just move all the long-term salary they can. Now that Quinn Snyder's gone, there could be indications that Donovan Mitchell's going to be asking out at some point. Certainly won't give him a long-term commitment. Yada, yada. I think they could still do better in a cap-clearing move than Russell Westbrook and some moderately juicy stuff, so to speak. But the reason I brought this up really is just the idea of it's not going to be easy to move Russell Westbrook in a deal that will not just make the other side happy, but also make the Lakers happy and Laker fans happy, which gets back to why you and I have been saying to Laker fans a lot, you need to wrap your heads around the idea that Russell Westbrook may very well be back next season. This narrative that has been coming out through media, this is not pure posturing. This is not the Lakers leaking stuff, trying to get a leverage play. They obviously want to try to get as much leverage as they possibly can. This is them. I think actually this is very rare. You see this happen in sports or really any industry that has leaks. This is actually truth being leaked. It's very rare.
It's the kind of thing, Andy,
it's candidness being leaked.
If I had hair, I would tear it out over this stuff because it's like, I understand, there are certain times in the NBA where you're like, you know what? Let's put out the opposite of let's do the the psychological warfare here and whatever. And it's just, we're not desperate to trade this guy. We're not here. Who you think you're gonna fool by saying that like the Russ thing is like, no, we are awesome with that. Like this went great last year. And the player that we know we have, we totally believe that this is where we want to be. You are not fooling anyone. What I actually think in some ways that they're doing, and I kind of like it, is putting out signals to the league. We are not going to be dumb. It's not trying to get you to sweeten your deal. It's more, don't call us with really stupid bleep. And then secondarily, fans, understand that we are trying not to make a bad decision worse. And look, I tweeted this out this afternoon. It was sort of because this Sunday afternoon, it popped up again on Twitter where you were in a little bit of a back and forth. I was in a little bit of a back and forth with people because people were really upset. I was like, look, it doesn't take a perfect deal to trade Westbrook. The idea isn't like you swindle a team into, Tom Sawyer paint the fence style or whatever into taking him. It's probably a meh deal where you get rid of him. But it's really easy to make it worse. And you cannot make it worse. Doing something that makes you feel better about this trade from last year, but actually makes the future worse is bad. And that is the thrust of my entire offseason to this point, which is doing something stupid to get rid of Westbrook is a bad idea. It seems to infuriate people whenever I make that point.
Yeah, it did though because we had mentioned before that one of the things we are concerned about with with just putting this idea out there is that outside of it would upset at least 51% of our Twitter following and a lot of people that listen to this show and comment on the YouTube section, that it could cost us our friendship with Daman Rangula. Everybody knows him from Lakers Twitter. He's a great guy. He's one of our favorites, and he loathes
a recent guest of the show.
Yes. So he and I were going back and forth on DM. Happy to say he still remains our friend, but he had mentioned, can you imagine Russ even playing 10 minutes a night in the finals? It would be a disaster if he was on the team next season. And I came up with the idea of just, because Brian, I love a thought experiment and a harebrained scheme, and also acknowledging we may have to do this with Russ next season. You and I both think we will be at least starting out the
Damon's
season.
Thought experiment, I lost it. I lost me when he was like, can you imagine Russ playing 10 minutes a night in the finals? I'm like, no, because I can't imagine this team getting there.
But anyway, obviously Darvin Ham is projecting that he is excited to work with Russell Westbrook, that he feels like he and Russ can have a very open, transparent, candid relationship. They can talk to each other in ways like men that hopefully can bring out the best in Russ. When he mentioned Russ playing 10 minutes in the finals and it being a disaster, I said, what if Darvin Ham tells Russ that he's only playing 10 minutes per game in those finals, but in the 10 minutes, he is allowed total carte blanche? Like, that's the compromise. For those 10 minutes, it's Russ's show. Doesn't matter if LeBron's on the floor. Doesn't matter if AD's on the floor. Doesn't matter if they're both on the floor. They both
look at me. Look at me. Mm-hmm. I am the captain now.
They both have to defer to what Russ wants to do for 10 minutes a game. That's Russ's time. Everybody else is doing Russ's time. And then from there, if Russ's time happens to work out well, he will be extended extra minutes, but those extra minutes
at the end of your 10 minutes, Darvin Ham's back in control and can do whatever he wants.
And after those 10 minutes, we go back to playing, like adults, and everybody's sharing in the sandbox. But for those 10 minutes, they're Russ's time, no matter who else is out there. The way I see it is, over the course of any 48-minute game, teams don't play well for 10 minutes anyway. So you're just going to designate the 10 minutes that you may not play well. It will force the Lakers to play at their absolute best for those other 38 minutes. If they play at their absolute best as a finals team, that's probably enough. And that's how you keep Russ engaged in the finals, but for everything leading up to the finals. 10 minutes per game is designated Russ time.
You know what? I'm willing.
What say you?
I'll tell you next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Truebill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or you just forgot about. Like, on average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill's. Companies, all these companies that have you subscribe to whatever, they make it hard to cancel, impossible to cancel, really complicated and frustrating. That's the business plan. But Truebill, they make it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. Truebill has over 2 million users.
Tab magazine.
Yeah. Well, get Truebill because they can help you out of this, Brian. They've helped save their users, all 2 million of them, over $100 million collectively. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA.
So we'll get to Anthony Davis here in a second. And I actually had one more thing that I thought was kind of fascinating about the poll. But to your point, to your question, I feel like if this is what got the Lakers to the finals, you want to talk about a wild card and you want to talk about must-see television. I think the guy who's most behind this plan, the Russ is in charge for 10 minutes plan, is Adam Silver, because everyone is tuning in for that. So if this is the price that the Lakers have to pay for a scenario in which they are in the finals, I kind of don't give a bleep what they do once they're there, because they've already exceeded my expectations for next season. So yes, let's institute the Andy Kamenetsky 10-minute Russell Westbrook plan and put that in, not in pencil, but in ink. Let's talk about the video. Andy, the 8 seconds that went by, and I'll just tell everyone, I've seen the whole thing. If you go to Google introducing Nuke Squad Anthony Davis, these are video game people. Apparently the Nuke Squad is a thing that the kids who play video games know. I didn't. But anyway, it's a little out of context, but he does say the magic words, which are, I have not picked up a basketball since April. And there is no context in which that wouldn't upset people, because
and then he proceeds to put up a jumper and miss
that like hits the side of the building. He misses by a lot. People are upset by this because Anthony Davis was bad by his standards last season, and he was particularly bad as a shooter. Not just the 18% that he shot from three-point range. Yes, 18%. But pretty much from everywhere. And so this clip got people really upset.
Yeah. As the saying goes, Brian, timing is everything.
Yes.
And this is the worst time for that video to come out, combined with his performance, the idea that AD hasn't put up a shot since April when he was, if you recall, injured. It can also get people wondering, oh, is this because his rehab isn't going the way it should be? Is he not physically in a place where he can feel comfortable going through those type of workouts?
It just tells me he doesn't have the eye of the tiger.
Right. Or is he just, like you said, not interested? Is he just not interested right now in putting in the work that needs to happen? And on one hand, as I think people can probably tell from the way we've been setting up this video, it is a complete overreaction to put everything in this. Like, we don't know.
It's monumentally stupid.
Right. It's a small clip. We don't know actually when the video was shot. Like, he might have.
Andy, let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say it was shot yesterday. Let's say it was shot June 11th, June 12th. Let's say it was shot today, June 13th. I don't care. It doesn't like we somehow went forward in time based on when we taped this show. It doesn't matter, because logically, like, you go back and you think about what he's always said. He does 4 weeks or whatever, a month or so to heal after a season. Probably more this year because he was more banged up than normal. So he needs a month where he just heals and doesn't. Then typically he said, I do about 6 weeks of fitness and weight work and all that kind of stuff. And then I go pick up basketballs and stuff like that. It is June. Do you know when they have to be at training camp? It's like October. Like, my kids just got out of school. They'll be back in school for like a month before these guys even show up to training camp. Nothing about this is unusual, but the optics tell you everything about where Lakers fans are vis-a-vis Anthony Davis right now.
Yeah, in terms of the numbers with his jump shooting, per Basketball Reference, I looked up some of what he did last season. He shot very well from 3 to 10 feet, 79%, but that's a distance, Brian, with a lot of wiggle room. Like, his percentages from 4 feet might have been way better than, say, 9 feet. But then either way, 10 to 16 feet, shot a career low 31%. 41% from 16 to 30, but it might be a little bit misleading. Get into that in a second. And he was abysmal from behind the arc. Ooh. And then went over and looked at cleaning the glass, and what they defined as short mid-range, which is beyond 4 feet, but inside the free throw line extended, shot 38%, which is in the 40th percentile for his position. Then long mid-range, he was in the 61st percentile, but overall for mid-range, 40th percentile. And then again, he was dreadful by any percentile, position, counting number, whatever, from behind the arc. And also, this is something that I hadn't really noticed, Brian, until I started going through his numbers. Generally speaking, jump shooting, they are down as a Laker from where they were as a Hornetican in New Orleans. So, like, this is a thing for Anthony Davis. Like, in terms of what he has done as a player overall in his career, his jump shooting has actually gotten worse on balance outside of the bubble, which we're going to get into in a little bit. They've been worse as a Laker. So as much as people may be overreacting to just what's in this video, as a standalone thing, which, and again, calm down.
What it says, as what the video says, as a reflection of Anthony Davis's caring about playing well.
But I get why fans care. I get why they care. Even if they're overreacting, I understand why they care.
Yes. It is, like so many things, a crazy reflection of just how quickly they've unraveled. Because I would like to remind you and everyone else, they won a title 2 years ago. Like, Anthony Davis was ascending in crazy ways 2 years ago, finishing out the bubble and all that. We were talking about, like, people were having real conversations and they weren't ridiculous about whether or not Anthony Davis was on the level or even better than Giannis. Like, he was a presumptive MVP candidate coming into the next year, which for reasons that actually weren't entirely his fault, we all should have realized was way too much to ask. But the layoff was too short. But like, it's gone from Anthony Davis, is he better than Giannis, just won a title, to like, people are upset because in early June he's still not taking jumpers and he's not in the gym every day hoisting up shots and all that kind of stuff. And I know you talked about the bubble and the connection of what that means going forward, and maybe sort of a rethinking of Anthony Davis. And let's get into that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, baseball, boxing, MMA, NFL futures, and more. Right now, heading into Game 5, pivotal Game 5 of the NBA Finals between the Celtics and the Warriors. Golden State is currently a 3.5-point favorite at home. Don't know what to do with this, just as I haven't known exactly how to bet this entire series, because Boston, I think, is the deeper, more talented team, but they are also the more unpredictable team. Steph has been the best player by far in the series. Boston, however, has not lost 2 games in a row in the playoffs. So lot of implications, but that is the line right now. BetOnline, your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head to the website today, use your mobile device, learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
When you went back and looked at some of these numbers, particularly as a Laker, of Anthony Davis as a jump shooter, and obviously so much attention has gone to the value of his mid-range game at what it does. I hope he stops shooting 3-pointers, but the mid-range game is a different deal. How do you think, you were talking in the last segment, how do you think that means like equals a reevaluation of kind of what we think about when we go back and we look at the bubble?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we've talked about this. Fans have talked about it. Darvin Ham, in his introductory press conference, talked about getting back that version of Anthony Davis in the bubble. And I going through some of these numbers and really thinking about this more because of this video controversy, it's made me just wonder if we need to, I don't know, sort of rethink or reconfigure what exactly that means, or what we're looking for, because so much of that version of Anthony Davis was just raining jump shots from all over the court, which is the thing that would conceptually make Anthony Davis truly unguardable.
Right. Like, because what it does to open up everything on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, if Anthony Davis can really hit shots from that wide of a range, I don't know what the hell you do with him. And it was pretty clear during the bubble run. The answer is you don't do anything with him. He destroys you. But these numbers were so far above his career averages. Like, for example, he was 40% from 10 to 16 feet, which is slightly above his marks as a Laker, which are around 38% from that range. But from 16 to 23 feet, Anthony Davis in the 2020 playoff run shot 55%. That's 17% higher than his career, 38%. And as a Laker, it's 20% higher what he's been. He's been 35% from that range as a Laker. And he shot 38% from 3 in the bubble. He's never shot that high in a season his entire career. His best mark is 34%. He's 30% on his career and 29% rounding up as a Laker. So, I mean, it's one thing to shoot above your averages. It's one thing to do a career best. These numbers for Anthony Davis are so far beyond anything he's ever done or typically has done. I've been just wondering if we're actually making a mistake, even thinking that that version of Anthony Davis, in terms of specific production, can be done again.
It's interesting you put it that way, because I think so much of when we think of Davis, like Bubble Davis, is built around aggression, built around force built around just sort of like the
Mindset.
mindset, just the imprint that he makes on the game, like playing with confidence and forcing the issue, controlling the game that's around him in ways that bigs, particularly, non-ball handling bigs, like, Giannis has the ball in his hands more than AD does, but like he kind of imposed himself onto games in the bubble in way. But there is, you're right, like a mechanical portion of that, which is the production from certain spots on the floor, where the points came from, how the shooting looked, that enhances his ability to impose his will. And so if it's unrealistic to think of the mid-range game, the long mid-range game, he's actually much better from like 18 feet than he is from like 9. But however you shake it out, if that production needs to come in a different way, you're right. It is important to think about Bubble Davis differently, because to recreate the force, to recreate the imposing nature of that player, you might need to do something different with him on the floor. It's a really interesting point.
I mean, everybody knew that he shot better in the bubble than he typically does.
For sure.
I just didn't really realize it was that much better. Like I knew it was better, but like looking at those numbers, it's like 20% higher in certain ranges. I don't know if you can count on that. Like, a guy that's normally 50th percentile or something like that going 90. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you can actually treat that as
shooting
something to
18
aspire
footers
for.
like he's Chris Paul, basically. It's like, and the answer from a production standpoint is probably somewhere in the middle. It probably matters too, like how those shots are coming, where they're coming.
And we've been as guilty. By the way, we've been as guilty of this
as
anybody.
For sure. But I mean, he doesn't need that. He doesn't need to be that guy. It's like, are they jumpers that he's sort of settling for? Are they jumpers that come like with confidence in order to set up other things that have come off of other plays? It's just, he is one of those guys that manages to put up good numbers kind of all the time. The counting stats on Davis can be, he truly is a player you need to watch. And you do see how that 22 and 8 happened, because and it's anecdotal, it's off the top of my head, and I'm sure there are people listening to the show be like, what about this guy? Off the top of my head, there are very few players I can think of that have a wider range on the same stat line in terms of how much you remember them in that game doing those things than Anthony Davis. Certainly on the Lakers, in the time that I've been covering this team, which people know for us, Andy, is like 15, 16 years at this point. It's like, and I can't, it really is interesting to think of, like, you got to create that player, the production may need to come from different spots. You're right.
Yeah. It's just, obviously he can be better than he has been. And a lot of this is just staying on the court. I mean, he's going to find the best version of himself when he feels confident in his body and he can really create a rhythm, and all of his teammates get in rhythm with him, and everybody can accentuate each other. Like all of those,
he's healthier enough to put the ball on the floor and get to the rack really quickly, which opens up the mid-range.
Exactly.
All that stuff.
I mean,
absolutely.
All of this is academic and theoretical if he can't stay on the court. And that's the number one concern that you always have with AD. But I just, in really taking a look at his jump shooting, like, it just made me really realize, like, I just wonder if we are looking for something, like for essentially lightning to to be caught in a bottle twice. And that's really difficult to count on. And look, the middle ground between what we've had the last couple seasons with AD and the bubble, that's a damn good player. Mm-hmm. Like, let's make that very
as
clear.
A jump shooter, because like absolutely, that guy's intensely good,
right? I mean, because again, the more spots AD can confidently hit from, he just becomes that much more difficult to figure out what to do with offensively, because just who do you put on him? How do you go about guarding him?
It's too mobile.
Yeah, exactly. And then like truly a pick and roll between him and LeBron, hell, him and Russ, becomes really hard to figure out.
Let's say this, because I think the point I was going to get into, the stuff with Steph, um, is related to this in some ways, and it's even kind of related. It ties back into the stuff we were talking about, our fun, fictional trade around Rudy Gobert, and the reasons that half the fans were
According
like,
to fans, it's not that
"Hell
much
no."
fun.
No, it's like they're like, hell no. 50% of the guy who's a DPOY candidate this year. Fairly, how many times has he been on All-Star?
He's been
Once,
at
right?
least no, he's
No, a couple
I
times.
think a couple times. He's been Defensive Player of the Year. I want to say 3 times.
Yeah, and he's got good nicknames and all that stuff. So I can tie all these things in different ways back to Anthony Davis, and I think, Andy, I'll have the opportunity to do it this week, potentially as early as Tuesday. I want to let people know to find us, Locked On Lakers, on YouTube. That's where, again, reminder to subscribe there and get the podcast a little bit early on most nights. The Ultimate NBA Mock Draft show starts on June 16th. Over 50 insiders. Nothing equals the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. All kinds of insiders. First picks June 16th. Search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you don't miss a pick. 2 people who probably won't be involved in that show are us. You have to have a pick to be part of the show. But hey, you never know. They have, I think. All right, we will see everybody on Tuesday.